Welcome back. We are covering Behind Her Eyes Part 2. If you haven't seen our first part, it's in the description. But basically, what had happened was, Louise is a recently divorced mom who ends up having an affair with her new boss, David, a psychiatrist. David is actually married to Adele, though, who is a stay-at-home rich girl. David drugs her up with a lot of pills, and Louise ends up befriending Adele. Adele been having these weird nightmares where she's panicking about losing her son Adam, and Adele helps her to control the dreams using methods her friend Rob taught her. Adele and Rob had met at a psychiatric ward. Adele ended up there after a house fire killed both her parents. Luckily, David was there to save Adele from getting burned. David and Adele's relationship has grown toxic, though, and the reason why is not revealed to viewers yet. All will be revealed in this last part. We get weird flashbacks of the couple in the woods and David's watch in a water well. Recently, Adele had gone to a shady part of town and got a black eye. Now let's continue. Louise finally learns how to control her dreams, so her door leads her to a sunny place where she gets to play with Adam and finds a hot zaddy David cooking her some meat. In the dream, she eats his meat in the bedroom. Meanwhile, David goes to give Adele a pill, her eye looking like my foreskin. Adele remembers Rob and how he didn't want to leave the institution because there was nothing for him out there. He knew that Adele had everything, and he was afraid of losing her. But Adele assured him that everything would be better, so she made him promise to visit her. At the present moment, David's patient Anthony rings the doorbell, looking for him. Adele opens the door, and Anthony gets worried after seeing her black eye. Thinking that David did it to his wife, Anthony offers to help. When Louise sees the bruise, Adele explains that it's caused by her clumsiness. Then they talk about how Louise can finally control her dreams. The next day at the office, Anthony's parents visit Dr. Sharma. Anthony has told them that he saw David strike his wife. Because of the accusations, Dr. Sharma calls Adele to ask about the matter, and Adele says that David never hurt her. Louise is listening to the phone call, and she's terrified when she hears the accusation. "Girl, this what you finna get messing with Mayo people." Later, David comes home to confront Adele, but she says that it was the first time she met Anthony. Frustrated with his wife, David goes to Louise's house to drink and forget. Louise admits she listened to the phone call, but David swears he didn't hit Adele. He adds that Adele still loves him, but he no longer loves her. Louise sends him back home. When she dreams that night, she finds a second door but wakes up before she gets to see what's on the other side. She reads Rob's diary and finds out how much he loved and cared for Adele. Rob also didn't trust David and was suspicious of his involvement in the fire that killed Adele's parents. The next morning, Adele closes her eyes and opens a second door in her consciousness and goes through it. The film transitions between Adele and David, confessing that he's fallen in love with Louise, and Adele somehow is able to listen into this conversation. Furious, Adele starts to work on her plan. She tells the gym staff to call later for an extended membership for Louise. Then she meets up with Anthony, who hands her the drugs she asked for. He still believes that Adele is a victim. While checking her Get High kit at home, Adele remembers Rob visiting her at her estate after he got out of rehab. Rob was so shocked by how rich Adele is, and he admits he'd give anything just to have Adele's face and all her money, despite Adele saying that she was lonely. At present time, the gym staff finally calls and David answers the phone. He's surprised to hear that an extended membership is being given to Louise. He takes Adele's phone and finds her conversation with Louise, which confirms his suspicions. He looked like he finna slap her, but leaves. So David confronts Louise about lying to him. She admits that she didn't want to be friends with Adele but felt sorry for her because she looked lonely. The fight escalates, and when Louise reveals she knows that David has all of Adele's money, he fires her on the spot. He threatens to tell Dr. Sharma the truth if she refuses to comply. The next day, Louise tears up as she tells Dr. Sharma she has to resign because of some personal matters. "This why you don't shit where you eat, girl. Instead, you let that man eat you out." However, Dr. Sharma refuses to accept the resignation and says it will only be temporary. Louise goes to Adele's house and finds her passed out on a chair, so she forces her way inside. Adele wakes up from her sleeping trance but is too high to stand up on her own. She sympathizes with Louise losing her job, but she's thankful that Louise didn't say anything more to David. Then Adele shows Louise the cupboard filled with prescription pills, which she says David makes her take all the time. Louise gets worried because those are some strong sedatives and medication for antipsychotics. She thinks David is treating Adele poorly and drugging her on purpose to make her look crazy. Adele explains that it all started when she caught David having an affair with a woman named Marianne. Adele reveals that David has a file on her to make her look crazy, spanning years that they've been together, and that people will believe him over her because he's a psychiatrist. That night, Adele remembers her time with Rob. He fell in love with her home, and he wanted to stay forever. This past Adele is very sweet. In the present, David wonders if Adele knew who Louise was, but Adele said it was just serendipitous. David doesn't believe her fully though, because there's too many coincidences. While David looks at the painting, he thinks about Rob's dead body at the bottom of the well. While David is at work, Adele is busy getting high. Meanwhile, Louise is overjoyed that Adam finally returns from France. Her relationship with her ex, Ian, has gotten better, and she even wishes him the best. Her best friend, Sophie, visits her. After learning about what happened, she advises Louise to stay away from the couple. But Louise feels like she can't just abandon Adele. With that, she tells Sophie to let her be. The besties always know what's right, but our main girl not finna listen, of course. Later that night, Louise leaves Adam with her neighbor Laura and heads back to the office. She takes out Adele's files from David's drawer and after taking a quick look, brings them home with her. The next morning, she takes the files to Adele and admits she didn't read all of them. She sympathizes with Adele and tells her to leave David so she can be happy. So Adele shows her the painting in their bedroom, saying that David refused to sell the Fairdale estate and that she thinks David might have killed Rob. Louise continues to read Rob's diary and discovers that Rob hated his sister, Elsa, and the place they used to live in. All he did was take drugs. He couldn't wait to get out there and see Adele again. He sees Adele as a way to escape. While reading, Louise falls asleep and dreams. There she finds a second door for the first time. When she enters it, she transports her consciousness to Adam's bedroom and finds him sleeping. When she finally wakes up and checks her son's room, she's surprised to see it was just like her dream. She goes back to reading but notices the rest of the diary entries were removed. She does some research on Rob's sister Elsa. Then David shows up at her house, asking her to give back the files she took and her office key. Louise pretends not to know about it, but David tells her there is a security camera outside the office. He even says that she'll get hurt if she keeps interfering. Usually black people mind their own business, but Louise persistent AF. Adele continues to show a picture-perfect image to David, but he's done with her and finally asks for a divorce. He's confused as to how she knows everything he's doing, and he doesn't believe she didn't know about Louise before they met. Back in the past, Adele remembers Rob and the first time they used astral projection. Their consciousness left their bodies and traveled around the vast estate before going back. Rob was overjoyed with what he learned, but Adele is sad because she thought that she could have saved her parents in the fire if she wasn't outside her body when it happened. Then Rob met David, and he was mesmerized with how perfect David was. Rob wanted to do the nasty with David, but Rob looking like Gollum over here. Louise starts her own investigation and calls Rob's sister. Elsa says that Rob is probably dead somewhere because she hasn't heard from him in 10 years. So Louise dives online and finds articles about David and how some suspect that it was very convenient that he was there at the time the house burned. He was a suspect for a while before he was cleared. So Louise writes to the police saying that David must have killed Rob and that they should look into the matter right away. Miss Ma'am should really mind her own damn business. While reading Adam a story, Louise dreams, enters a second door, and accidentally uses astral projection. Her consciousness reaches her neighbor's unit before she returns to her place and finds Adam crying and trying to wake her up. When she opens her eyes, she calms him down, then heads over to Laura's. She sees that her house is in exactly the same state as the one she saw in her dream. After some deep thinking, she realizes that if she could do that, then Adele has been doing it all this time. Watching her and David doing the nasty, and everything Adele did was premeditated. Even when Adele had bumped into Louise, it was all planned. This upsets Louise, calling Adele a lying bitch-ass hoe. Louise finds Marianne exactly where Adele told her she'd be. Marianne tells her how sad David looked when they first met, but insisted they were not having an affair. Yeah, David not interested in her uneven eyelids. However, Adele apparently found out that she and David had been talking about how miserable David was, and so Adele came to her house and confronted her. Marianne closes the door on Adele's face, only infuriating her more. Marianne didn't like how rude Adele was, so she went ahead and told David to leave her. The next day, Marianne came home to find her bedroom in such a mess with a sexual slur written on her walls using red paint. When she opened the door, Adele was there, standing outside with a knife in her hand, telling Marianne to let them be. Marianne tells Louise to run the fuck away from them. In the past, when Rob spent some time with David, his suspicions melted, and he realized that David is a good guy. Gollum staring into those deep brown eyes and falling for David. At dinner, he feels jealous when the two flirt in front of him, but tries not to make a big deal out of it. When Adele and David made squealing noises in the bedroom that night, Rob used astral projection to spy on the two while they were doing it, creating his own OnlyFans to watch. Finally realizing that Adele is a dangerous person, Louise calls the office to ask David to meet her. They finally understand the gravity of the situation. 10 years ago, David rushed home after Adele's phone call. Adele revealed she was getting high with Rob, but he overdosed on purpose because he was depressed. She was so scared that she dumped his body into the well. She was worried that people would suspect her because she just got out of rehab right after her parents died. David wanted to call the police, but Adele convinced him not to because his watch also fell into the well. David admits that he tried to make their marriage work for so long, but his guilt got the better of him, while Adele moved on like it was nothing. David wanted to leave, but Adele threatened to tell authorities that it was David who killed Rob. David is relieved that Louise wrote to the police about Rob. However, Louise fails to mention Adele's ability to do astral projection. Afterwards, Louise takes Adam to Ian's. Then she goes home and calls out Adele, knowing that she's watching her. Then Adele calls her on the phone, and Louise finally reveals that David will go to prison because of what happened to Rob. Even though Adele is bothered with the idea of never seeing David again, she pretends that it doesn't affect her. 10 years ago, Rob knew that their setup wouldn't work for a long time. He saw how perfect Adele and David were for each other, and he couldn't see himself in their lives. Adele tried convincing him not to worry so much because David liked him. At present, Adele writes a letter admitting all the bad things she did, including dumping Rob's body in the well. She absolves David of any responsibility for what happened. She starts a fire before injecting herself with heroin, lying down on the bed like she's just going to sleep. She messages Louise before she drifts off, reminding her how she thought she was a friend. Louise rushes to get to Adele's house after contacting the police. The fire has already started when she gets there, and Adele is no longer answering. She tries to open the door, and when she fails, she resorts to her one last option, astral projection. Louise's consciousness moves into the house and gets inside Adele's body. Meanwhile, Adele's consciousness quickly enters Louise's body. Pulling a Freaky Friday situation, Adele in Louise's body then enters the house and finds Louise struggling to get up. Everything is happening just as she had planned. Louise begs for help, but Adele ignores her and proceeds to inject her with heroin, causing her to overdose. Then she drags the body outside and starts crying when the authorities arrive. When Louise gets home, she sees a pigeon with a green glow. Then she goes to take on her new persona. The fake ass tries her best to be the new Louise. Eventually, she goes to pick up Adam. Ian wants to talk about the fire that happened, but Adele tells him that everything is okay before telling him off. A huge attitude shift from the nice Louise. When Adam comes to say hi, he senses that something has changed and that his mother's acting differently. He done clocked your ass knowing damn well that ain't a black woman in there. Louise goes to reunite with David, and David unknowingly kisses the new Louise. Back in the past, after getting high, Rob suggested to Adele that they swap bodies during astral projection. Adele found the idea intriguing, so she immediately agreed. However, after they made the switch, Adele begged Rob to switch back because she wasn't used to Rob's drugged-up body. But as it turned out, Rob had been planning this. He injected heroin into his body, slowly killing Adele. He admitted not wanting to go back to his old life, and so he would take over Adele's life. Then he dragged and dumped the body into the well. So Rob was in Adele's body this whole time, gooped and gagged. The case against David gets dropped, and soon he marries the woman he thinks is Louise. Rob is overjoyed that things have once again worked in his favor, leaving him with only one problem left. Adam, who looks at his mother knowing damn well that ain't a black woman inside there. It's a damn white man. What did you guys think of that twist? Did you see it coming? All the clues are there, but it's so left field that it worked for me. I wish we could get a continuation, but the series just ends like that. It was based on a book, but there's no sequel to that either. Some have speculated that Louise was able to astral project into the pigeon because it had a green glow like Louise's astral projection.
Subscribe to watch more videos like this. Turn on notifications. And leave a like, it really helps the channel out. Thank you for watching.